where do people read the bullet?
So the number one place that people tell me that they read the bullet is on the can. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Tracy.
And I'm Jessica.
And we're the co-creators of She's on Top, an online community for women entrepreneurs.
How many of you get your news from a traditional newspaper? If you're like most women under 35, you're getting your news online.
Joanna Track realized there was an opportunity here, and 2 years ago she launched The Bullet,
An online media publication giving you the daily highlights of the news. If you haven't subscribed, you're going to want to after watching this.
I'm definitely not a news junkie, and part of the motivation for why I started The Bullet is that I am the audience of people who didn't want to read the news because I found it too overwhelming and too depressing and confusing. So I write The Bullet for people like me who want to know what's going on but don't want to do the deep dive. I wasn't one of those people who grew up knowing I was going to be an entrepreneur from a young age, but there was always something about that lifestyle that appealed to me, and I always was fascinated by the idea of building brands. Even as a teenager, I just followed different stories of various brands, mainly in the lifestyle world, and was just fascinated with how they came from being an idea to this, fully pretty much living and breathing entity. I founded a number of entrepreneurial ventures. The first was in 2004, and that was sweetspot.ca. Then from there, I founded an e-commerce company called Elux. After that, I started a boutique consultancy called Good Eggs & Co. And most recently, I started The Bullet about 2 years ago. In the first couple of years of running SweetSpot, it was definitely very challenging to make ends meet, shall we say. Actually, for the first 6 months that I started the business, I maintained my full-time job in advertising. So I used to always joke that I was working 50% at Ogilvy and 100% at SweetSpot, and so obviously the math doesn't add up, but that's how hard I was working. When I finally decided I had to leave Ogilvy in order to give the business all the attention it needed to grow, I decided to dig into my savings. I don't necessarily recommend it, but I did take the chance. Ran through my RSP, racked up a lot of credit card debt, and then things turned around when I secured the partnership with Rogers. I came up with the idea for The Bullet about 2 years ago. I started looking in the market for what type of business could I launch again, given my skills, my background, my reputation, and also managing what type of investment it would require to launch a new business. And when I was doing that research, I started coming across some other news aggregator brands, some in the US and in the UK, that were doing an incredible job of dishing the news in a new and refreshing way with a new voice and a different feeling than traditional media. And I realized that for me, it was essentially SweetSpot for the news. It was taking that same tone and brand, the exact same business model, and applying it to a new subject matter. We have an amazing team at The Bullet. I have Sam Speisman, who's the managing editor, who also worked with me at SweetSpot, which I love even more. I have Jen Masseau, who's the associate editor, who supports Sam in all the preparation of all the content. And I have Lourenco, who is my operations manager, program manager, referral concierge. She does everything to help in the back end and operations and make sure things work smoothly. And then in addition, we have a number of freelancers who contribute to the various pieces of content we produce. The process for The Bullet, Monday to Friday, is that in the early afternoon, Sam and Jen start to scour all the news headlines to see what is trending and what people are talking about and what's breaking news. And they start to, on Slack, debate back and forth what the key story should be for each subject. So politics, business, tech, and all the different categories we have in the newsletter. By the late afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock, they're making those decisions. And between them and the freelancers, they start writing the different sections. Throughout all that, I might be piping in with suggestions if I see something that they haven't. And usually at around 9 o'clock at night, they are ready with a draft, which I review. I add my commentary. I'm always known as the one with the sarcastic humor. And usually by somewhere between 10 and 11 at night, we're done, unless there's something major going on in the news that we were following. And then at around 5:45 in the morning, someone who's on duty will be up, checking the news to make sure whether anything new has happened in the night. If so, they add it to the newsletter, and then when it's ready to go, they press schedule for 6:30. I'm not working 24 hours a day, although it feels like it sometimes. I realize how important it is to take a break. And so for me, pretty much every day between 4 and 8 p.m., I'm off the clock, off the computer, either spending time with my son or my dog or working out or whatever it is, or friends. And then because I know I have to get back on at 8 or 9 o'clock, that, that's a way for me to decompress for a while. My advice for anyone who is considering starting their own business and trying to figure out their financial situation is a couple things. One is you have to assume that it's going to end up costing you more and taking you longer than any financial model you've put together. So you need to be prepared that if you think it's going to take a year to make money, it might actually take 2 years. So what are you going to do in that situation? And I think you have to be really reasonable with what your threshold is. If you're single, living in an apartment with, no mortgage, no kids, no pets, whatever, you have a lot more leeway to make some risky decisions. When there's other people involved, it's not to say you can't take a risk, but you have to take much more calculated risk. I think women make really incredible entrepreneurs. It's a generalization, but women tend to be more organized than men. I think they also tend to be more realistic than men. So men set these huge expectations of growth and revenue and expansion, and that's great if they make them, but I think women tend to set more realistic ones, which makes it more likely that they're going to achieve them. I think if you're feeling as stuck as an entrepreneur, you have to take a really good look, and sometimes that means stepping back. Does this business actually give me joy? Some people get so far into it and they don't even take the time to realize that this business doesn't make them happy, but they feel stuck in it, and I believe you're never truly stuck. The thing I love the most about being an entrepreneur is having control over not only my destiny, but the destiny of others. I can enrich people's lives both on the outside, so the readers, consumers, the audience of whatever brands I build, but also on the inside, which has always been as equally important to me. Changing people's lives by giving them an opportunity to blossom within their careers.
We really hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe because we would love you to become part of our community. And also leave a comment. Your feedback is super important to us.
And also please subscribe to The Bullet. The link's below. It's a fantastic publication. We read it every morning.
See you next time.